The child who learned to hide. It began quietly. Not with screams, not with bruises, but with a small pause that no one noticed. You were there, sitting at the kitchen table, hands still, listening for the next sound in the house. And when it finally came, a sigh, a slammed cupboard, a voice too sharp, you knew exactly what to do. Smile. Nod. Disappear a little. Because that was how you stayed safe. People saw the polite child, the helpful one. Such good manners, they'd say. They never saw how hard you worked to keep the air calm, how you watched every face like a weather report. Even laughter felt rehearsed, like lines you had to remember for a play called Everything's Fine. At school, teachers wrote kind notes about you, quiet, focused, responsible. They didn't know those words meant something else at home. Careful, cautious, ready. When other kids spilled juice or forgot homework, you tightened inside, afraid of mistakes that could bring storms. So you built your own disguise, a perfect smile stitched together by fear. It wasn't vanity, it was armor. The mask kept questions away, and questions were dangerous. If someone asked too much, you could feel the walls closing in, the threat behind the door of curiosity. You carried 3 invisible weights. First, the fear that no one would believe you. That if you ever said, "I'm not okay," the world would shake its head and walk on. Second, the fear of punishment, the echoing warning. If you tell, it'll get worse. And third, the heaviest of all, the fear of breaking the family image. That fragile photograph on the living room wall. So you stayed loyal to silence. You learned to laugh on cue, to hide the trembling in your chest with perfect posture. And when the night felt long, you told yourself a small lie, that this was normal, that maybe everyone lived like this. But deep down, something inside you whispered the truth through every heartbeat. This isn't safety. This is survival. The body that never feels safe. There's a strange kind of silence that lives inside the body. It doesn't shout. It hums, like electricity under the skin. You can sit in a quiet room and still feel your heart racing, as if danger is hiding behind the furniture. That's what happens when fear becomes muscle memory. As a child, you didn't have the luxury of calm. Calm was suspicious, the pause before shouting, the stillness before something broke. Your nervous system learned to listen harder than anyone should. Every door closing too fast made your stomach twist. Every change in tone made your body brace for a storm that sometimes never came. Psychologists call it hypervigilance. But for you, it was just life. You never knew when safety would vanish. So you taught yourself to stay ready, to anticipate moods, to read faces before they changed, to shrink before harm could find you. You carried that alertness everywhere. At school, when a teacher raised their voice, your shoulders locked tight. At night, you lay awake, counting footsteps, heart beating faster at every sound. Even in peaceful moments, your body couldn't rest because rest meant letting your guard down. and letting your guard down once it cost you too much. Years later, you would call it anxiety. But back then, it was simply survival, a small body trying to predict the unpredictable. The world saw a calm child, but inside was an alarm that never turned off. Even joy felt dangerous, because joy meant forgetting, and forgetting meant you might not see the next blow coming. So you learned to live between breaths, between movements, always halfway ready to run. You became your own protector, your own lookout, your own small soldier of peace. And in that lonely readiness, something inside of you began to believe that safety wasn't real, that it was only a trick the world played before it hurt you again. That belief would follow you for years. A shadow made not of memory, but of reflex. Because sometimes, what you survive doesn't leave scars on skin. It stays under it, waiting, listening, trembling quietly beneath every heartbeat. The past that doesn't end. Time moved forward, but your body didn't know it. It still lived in the old house, in the rooms where you learned to hold your breath. Even when you grew taller, changed cities, started a new life, the same alarm lived under your skin. Because trauma doesn't care about calendars. It stays where it first took root. You try to tell yourself, it's over. But one sigh from a partner, one cold tone from a boss, and suddenly you were back there again, small, uncertain, scanning for danger that wasn't really there. A slammed drawer, a phone that rings too long, someone turning away mid-sentence, all of it could make your chest tighten like a locked door. You weren't reacting to the moment. You were reacting to ghosts. That's the cruel trick of survival. It keeps protecting you long after the threat is gone. Your body thinks it's keeping you safe, but really it's keeping you trapped. Peace feels unnatural. Silence feels suspicious. Even kindness can feel like bait. So you start to live between two worlds. Outside, your composed, steady voice, calm smile, capable hands. Inside, you're scanning for tone, for signs, for shifts in the air that might warn you before everything falls apart again. It's exhausting, isn't it? Always preparing for something that never arrives, and yet somehow always does. When love comes, you want to trust it, but the nervous system doesn't know how. It flinches at warmth, expecting the burn that used to follow. It doubts peace, because peace was once the moment before the storm. And somewhere deep down, shame still whispers, you should be over this. But you're not broken for still feeling it. You're simply carrying what no one helped you put down. That's what trauma does. It teaches the body to remember what the mind wants to forget. And sometimes, remembering is not a choice, it's a reflex. You can bury the story, but the heartbeat keeps repeating it in its own quiet language. Stay alert. Stay small. Stay ready. The lies trauma teaches. At some point, you stopped asking for comfort. You told yourself, I don't need anyone. It sounded like strength, but it was really exhaustion. The tired logic of someone who's been disappointed too many times. You learned early that needing made you vulnerable, and vulnerability got punished. So you built another mask, not the smiling one this time, but the capable one. The one that says, "I've got it handled." You worked harder than anyone. You chased perfection like it was oxygen, believing that if you just did everything right, no one would see how fragile you felt inside. Achievement became your disguise. Control became your safety. Others went the opposite way, hiding not behind success, but behind distance. Love felt like a trick, closeness like a trap. They learned to disappear before anyone could reach them, convinced that solitude was safer than trust. Maybe you did both, performing in the daylight, vanishing in the dark. Psychologists call it emotional numbing, but to you it just felt like quiet. A kind of peace that wasn't peaceful, just empty. You stopped feeling joy, because joy always came with a cost. You stopped crying, because crying never changed anything. And little by little, you stopped believing you deserve better. That's the lie trauma teaches. It whispers that love must be earned, that safety must be performed, that your worth depends on how well you hide your pain. And every time you live by that lie, it rewrote another piece of you. Until one day, even happiness felt foreign, like a language you used to know, but forgot how to speak. But beneath all that numbness, there's still a heartbeat that remembers the truth. The small, stubborn part of you that wants to laugh without checking if it's allowed. That wants to be held without fear. That wants to be seen, not for how well you cope, but for how deeply you've survived. The child who never got to be one. There's a kind of childhood that never happens. No scraped knees, no loud laughter echoing through the hallway, no careless sleep. Just a small figure always listening, always adjusting, always making sure nothing tips too far. That was you, the peacekeeper, the invisible one. While other kids learned curiosity, you learned caution. You studied moods instead of books, faces instead of games. Even joy was measured. Too much noise might wake the anger again. You learned to predict, to apologize before things went wrong, to say it's okay, even when it wasn't. And slowly, survival replaced innocence. You didn't get to be the child who asked for comfort. You became the one who gave it. You soothed the very people who scared you, carried responsibilities that weren't yours to hold. You learned to protect others at the cost of yourself. Those habits followed you into adulthood like loyal shadows. You became the reliable friend, the fixer, the one who never says no. You read rooms before entering them, adjusted your tone to fit what others needed. People called it empathy, but sometimes it was just fear of being too much, too honest, too visible. And in one day, in a quiet moment, it hit you. You spent your whole life cleaning up after storms you didn't cause, carrying burdens that were never yours, apologizing for existing in spaces that should have held you. That realization hurts because it shows you how much you've lost. But that pain is also truth breaking through the surface. The mask, once useful, starts to crack under its own weight. And underneath it, there's not weakness, just a child who never got to rest, who never got to be messy, loud, or loved without conditions. You've been carrying their shame for too long. It was never yours. And the moment you see that, truly see it, something begins to loosen inside you. A small breath returns. A space opens where the real you can finally start to exist. The moment silence breaks, healing doesn't begin with fireworks. It starts quietly, the way the pain once did. Maybe it's a sentence whispered to yourself after years of pretending. Maybe it's a journal entry that begins with shaking hands. Or maybe it's the first time you stop saying, "I'm fine," and let the silence answer instead. Breaking silence isn't about shouting the truth to the world. It's about finally speaking it inside yourself. Saying the words you were never allowed to say. It happened. It mattered. It hurt. Because the moment you name it, the secret loses its power. The shame that once owned you begins to slip through your fingers. It takes courage to face what you spent a lifetime avoiding. You may tremble. You may cry. You may even want to run. That's okay. It means your body is remembering what safety feels like for the first time. Not the kind of safety that depends on others, but the kind you give yourself. Psychologists call this repairing. But really, it's reparenting, giving yourself what was never given. A gentle voice that says, "You didn't deserve that." A steady hand that says, "You are safe now." And a quiet promise that says, "You don't have to earn love by suffering anymore." This is where the healing begins, not in forgetting, but in relearning. You start to trust your voice again. You begin to see that softness isn't weakness, that crying isn't danger, that rest isn't laziness. The world doesn't change overnight, but your inner world does. And for the first time, you feel a flicker of peace that isn't fake. It's real, fragile, and completely yours. Rewriting the blueprint. Healing isn't about becoming who you were before. It's about building a life where safety isn't borrowed from fear, where your nervous system, once tuned to danger, slowly learns a new rhythm, steady, calm, patient. It's the quiet miracle of realizing that peace no longer feels suspicious. You start small. You tell the truth even when your voice shakes. You rest without guilt. You let someone hug you. And this time, you don't flinch. Each act, no matter how small, becomes a message to your body. It's safe to be here now. Some days, the old reflexes return. You catch yourself apologizing for things that aren't your fault. You notice how easily you shrink when conflict arises. But instead of shaming yourself, you pause and breathe. Because this time, you know what's happening, and awareness itself is healing. You're rewriting your blueprint, one choice at a time. Choosing connection instead of withdrawal. Kindness instead of perfection. Honesty instead of silence. And slowly, your nervous system learns a truth it never knew. That calm doesn't have to mean danger. And love doesn't have to mean control. This isn't a straight path. Some days you'll fall back into old patterns. You'll question your progress, wonder if healing is even possible. But every time you return to yourself, every time you choose gentleness over judgment, you're teaching your mind and body a new language. The language of safety, of self-trust, of freedom. Returning home to the self. There comes a moment, not dramatic, not loud, when you realize you're no longer living in survival. Maybe it happens while washing dishes, or walking home as the sun folds into gold. Something feels different. Your chest doesn't ache the way it used to. The world, once sharp and unpredictable, softens around the edges. Healing doesn't erase what happened. It weaves it into you, not as a wound, but as wisdom. You remember, but you're no longer ruled by it. The child inside you, once silenced, finally exhales. They look around, uncertain at first, then begin to play again quietly, freely. You understand now that pain was never your identity. It was the evidence of your endurance. And the moment you stopped carrying someone else's shame, your body made space for your own truth to bloom. You start to laugh again, not the polite kind, but the full, breathless kind that fills a room. You sleep deeper. You forgive yourself for all the years you had to pretend. Because survival was never weakness. It was proof of your strength, of your instinct to live even when living felt impossible. Now, every small joy becomes a rebellion, a morning coffee, an unguarded smile, a moment of stillness that doesn't scare you anymore. You're no longer waiting for permission to exist. You are home in your body, in your truth, in your life. So when you see another person still wearing the mask you once wore, you'll know what to say. Not advice, not analysis, just the simple truth that once saved you. You're not alone. You never were. Where on this inner path do you find yourself now?